So yeah, I know what you're thinking. You just put Ethereum on your Elite 8 list for this year. Now you're trying to tell me that it could send us back into the bear market. Wade, what are you doing? Well, hold on. For one, as a journalist, I feel it's important to give you all sides of a narrative. And number two, this narrative got some weight on it. All right, I've been watching this unfold ever since I got into the space. XRP holders like to refer to this as ETHgate or Ethereum's free pass. But these allegations are coming from someone who was truly on the inside. His name is Steven Neroff. And if you don't believe me, listen for yourself.
I met with the talent about a month or so after he wrote the white paper. I like to tell the story. He lived with me for about 6 months while we're going through the crowd sale process, on and off. But for the most part, it was kind of him and me hanging out. And one time I looked at him and I said, "What are you doing?" He was typing and he was looking at this book. And he was typing, he was looking at this book. And he said, "Well, I'm coding." And he was coding about as fast as you could type. And I said, "Yeah, well, what's that book?" He said, "I'm learning Mandarin."
It's gonna be a doozy. This is an attempt at investigative journalism on your part of your boy. So let's just dive right into it. This is courtesy of The Bitcoinist. An Ethereum insider has made allegations against Ethereum's founders, claiming that their fraudulent activities far surpass those seen in the notorious FTX case. He recently published a shocking piece about Ethereum on X, November 2nd. The lawyer, who has personal knowledge of Ethereum, having worked for the blockchain network previously, has come forward with explosive allegations regarding the actions of Ethereum's founders Vitalik Buterin and Joseph Lubin. Now, this entire thing gets deep. As a matter of fact, when I was looking into Neroff, his history, he's pretty much credited as inventing the utility token, right? Which that clip that we shared a moment ago, I'm going to break down some more things from it. He's going to explain exactly what that means. But let's continue this story here. According to Neroff, these two Ethereum founders have allegedly orchestrated fraudulent activities regarding the Ethereum blockchain that exceed the scale of the actions committed by former CEO and founder of FTX, Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried. In a quote, he said, "Ethereum is the fraudulent elephant in the room in plain sight, 1,000 times bigger than FBX." One thing that did stand out to me was Steven's position in all of this. Now, I'm going to pull up a couple tweets here, and I would advise you to follow him on Twitter because this is, or X now, because this is, even though his lawyers advise against it, this is where a lot more information is coming out. And this is where I really got the understanding of his thinking. You see, this isn't like other situations where people have gone after Ethereum. This man actually has a lot of leverage. As a matter of fact, in 2019, the FBI was targeting this individual because of his connections within the crypto space. We're going to touch on that too in a minute, but let me share this tweet with you. He said on November 5th, "My intent is to be constructive while holding people and institutions accountable. If anything happens to me, then everything gets released in multiple ways. I set this up before I became public. That scenario would be a complete disaster for many people and institutions, and they know this." Now, his lawyer on Twitter backs this up by stating, yes, he has a case. It exists. We will be releasing all his filings in the near future. As his attorney, I wish he would stop talking until then, but he is eager to share his experience. Here's another Easter egg, another nugget, right? That further proves Steven's legitimacy to this entire situation. If you go to a website, and I brought this website up before during the SEC Ripple scenario. You guys are familiar with this name, Mr. John Deaton. He has a website where he archived video footage of Ethereum's early ongoings. And what I find to be the most interesting is that when I went back to the site to pull the video, because I was going to show you guys the video, it's not there anymore. As a matter of fact, the account that originally posted the content has been removed. So that should show you the depth of this information. But I was able to pull a quote from the website, which you can also still see. Ethereum lawyers told him that they had an illegal securities offering. He then said that he was charged with a very simple thing: raise money and not to go to prison. Yeah, simple enough. He also says that he described his plan to frame Ether as good to former SEC Chairman Joseph Grunfest, who thought it was brilliant that he spoke to some folks at the SEC who actually loved the idea and thought it made sense. Talking about Ethereum here. He describes this as the genesis of the concept of a utility coin. So when I mentioned earlier that Stephen is recognized for being the inventor of utility coins, this is kind of where that conversation started. Now, I want you to listen to this part of the discussion we shared earlier where he pretty much reinforces this.
The problem that they had was actually a really simple problem. How do we raise money in what was called a crowd sale at the time? The terminology keeps changing over the years, without going to prison. That was it.
For themselves, right?
Well, yeah, for me too, at that point, yeah.
I'm saying, but they wanted to do a crowd sale for Ethereum.
Correct. We needed to raise money, but they didn't know how to raise money because it was clear the concept of this being a security was already, that's not new law. If you want to sell something, and people had, Kickstarted comparisons and other kind of crowd sale comparisons, and there was the Jobs Act and stuff. There was all kinds of different legislation that made it clear that this was dangerous area.
It's clear at this point we've established that Stephen is legit, and his allegations that he's putting forth may have some weight to it just based on his positioning within Ethereum. Earlier in September, the former Ethereum advisor accused Vitalik Buterin and his father, Dmitry Buterin, of a combined effort to ruin his reputation by accusing him of the extortion of an Ethereum ICO. Now, this was a case that popped off back in 2019, and it was only recently settled this year. Criminal extortion charges against Steven Neroff and an early advisor to the Ethereum network were dismissed by a New York judge on May 5th, ending a 3.5-year legal battle that included explosive allegations he made against U.S. investigators. The dismissal, entered by U.S. District Court Judge Margot Brody, Chief Judge of the Eastern District of New York, comes 6 weeks after federal prosecutors moved to drop their case against Neroff, admitting in a March 20th, very important date there, court filing, that they had obtained materially exploratory evidence and were otherwise unable to prove the charges in the indictment beyond a reasonable doubt. So he's saying that Vitalik and his father accused him of extortion. And as of May of this year, a U.S. federal judge determined that that was not true. So at this point, as I'm doing my reading, I am officially hooked. I mean, you got me at this point, right? So I took it a step further because there's another element to the story that involves a Mr. Michael Haladi. I hope I'm saying it right. His actual name is Peters. But they were initially accused of extorting an unnamed Seattle-based crypto startup that Neroff had been hired to guide through its initial coin offering in 2017. Prosecutors said the pair made threats to destroy the company if they were not paid millions of dollars.
And so I took it upon myself to figure out a way solely for the purpose of making the project happen. To find a way legally to get this done. And by legally, I meant really this structure that worked, that was legally viable, and I believe we have maybe the only solid opinion that was ever given out, because I don't think anybody's been dumb enough to probably give an opinion since then. And so we connected with a good law firm. I did most of the research. I was fortunate that, I don't tell you what we did, but
every time, everything I read, it takes me deeper and deeper, guys. Let's finish this off here, though, because this is the shocking part, if we haven't been shocked already. Neroff's lawyer said their client was the victim of an elaborate setup by the FBI, which they say knowingly pursued false charges against Neroff in order to get him to turn over incriminating evidence on his contacts within the crypto industry. And I think that's the core of it right here. That's really the core. Who did this man know? And More importantly, why do they not want him to know these people? And going back to the tweet, he said he got the docs and he has it set up McAfee style that if anything happens to him, that information is coming out. What is that information? Now, I was also able to find the affidavit from 2019. Oh, you guys know I like to dig, man. I got a golden shovel in my closet. I ain't never showed it to nobody. But there was an agreement took place in July of 2017. Among other things, required MV, or in this case, the defendant, Stephen, this was the company that he was going by, revised Company One's white paper, which is Ethereum. They don't mention it by name, but they describe an ICO process. They describe how Stephen was intended to revise the company's white paper, add advisors and strategic partnerships for the company, and ensure a successful crowd sale. Source and curate pre-seed funding from strategic partners within the blockchain community, might be those connections, and assist with its sale and method of network connection. And it also completes Company One's crowd sale in a compliant manner. Here's the kicker though. In exchange for Stephen's services, Company One was required to provide him with 22.5% of all the crypto tokens sold by Company One. That would be ETH. And 22.5% of all funds raised by Company One, including in the form of cryptocurrency and cash, regardless of the method and manner in which the funds are raised. Now, this is coming from the FBI agent that was involved with the investigation. The rest of that affidavit goes into the allegations, which we know have been disproven as of this year. But that gives us an idea of what Stephen is owed and what he's looking to come for, right? Now, we're going to finish this out here because it's, man, it's a hell of a story. What Stephen says is he disclosed that founders Joseph Lubin and Vitalik Buterin have allegedly been colluding with corrupt U.S. government officials from some of the highest federal agencies. The former advisor mentioned prominent government figures that Ethereum may have had secret dealings with, including present United States Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Gary Gensler and former U.S. Chairperson Jay Clayton. Nero's allegations suggest that Ethereum's corruption runs deep and high, allowing the platform to have an unfair advantage in the crypto space. The claims, which are yet to be verified, is raising questions within the crypto community. So that is very much true, because it definitely raised a lot of questions with me. But in short, Mr. Nerov is on a mission, and if he has his way, it could reveal a lot that not only people within the Ethereum community want to know, but within the broader crypto space in general have been wanting to know for years. Did Ethereum get a free pass? Well, you know what? In that clip, okay, in that interview from 2017, he actually gives us a pretty good idea.
There was a former chief of the SEC that I was in daily conversations with, and we realized that very quickly that we have these round pegs, these things called tokens, and the Securities Acts, 33 to 34, the regulations underneath those, and other ones as have been talked about, were the square hole. They just simply didn't fit. So we had to come up with some methodology that made sense, that we could argue, and the only way we could do it at the time was by way of analogy. And so we had to look at similar areas, and we finally honed in on this thing called functionality.
So you come up with this idea, now you need the lawyer to opine that this is a good thing, that
right.
This is legal, that you can now, because of this, you can do what we now call an ICO.
Yeah, I mean, they thought I was pretty much out of my mind, and it was fortunate that we did have some higher authority, the former head of the SEC, to chime in, and we eventually made the argument that due to this functionality, I don't think we want to go to the legal aspect of it, because this is more about what did I learn from it. That because by utilizing this functionality, we could get into a safe zone. And at the time, safe zone just really meant, at worst case, because we had got an opinion, we probably wouldn't be put in prison. And we weren't trying to do anything illegal. We were trying to do this. And this was right now we're in the Wild West. Back then, it was just, there was no way around.
With this situation, man, it's interesting to see. And I'm very curious as to how it is going to play out. But I want to know your thoughts. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. As always, have a great day. Have a prosperous day. And remember, if that money is digital, so is the hustle. I'll see you in the next one.
Just real quick, can you just tell us about the ICO and then about the lessons learned?
Yeah, so the ICO itself was a watershed moment. It took us a month. We raised a gargantuan $18 million, which people are doing in about 10 seconds now. At the time, that was the largest crowd sale in history. So we were just astounded by the amount of interest. We had 15,000 participants. We had 50 Ethereum groups. We went. This was
and what was the price? And what was the price?
What's that?
What was the price of Ether?
Oh, that hurts.